Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Hope you guys are all doing well. We've got a fantastic show on the way. But first, I just want to say thanks to NordVPN, our sponsors here at the Everything is Black and White podcast, who without none of this would be possible. And we've teamed up with them to offer our listeners and viewers an exclusive offer. You can click the link in the podcast description box or go to nordvpn.com/tune to sign up and save your pennies on a plan. It is well worth your time to sign up. You are secure, you are safe, and you're supporting the podcast. Why sign up? I hear you ask. Well, there are a host of benefits. For me, it is the value for money because one subscription can be used across 10 devices. That's your work phone, your personal phone, your tablet, what have you. 10 devices, one subscription. I mean, that is the definition of value for money. The other thing I love about it as well is the way that it keeps your details safe and secure when browsing on public Wi-Fi. So if you're on the bus, the train, you're in a cafe and you're connected to their Wi-Fi, there is always the risk that your details could be compromised. That's your bank details, your passwords, and a load of other stuff as well. But with Nord, you are safe and you are secure. And that for me means a heck of a lot. And look, if you're going abroad as well and you're missing your home comforts and you want to keep with it with all your UK streaming services, then you can click the location back to the UK and make sure you never miss your favorite program. What is not to love about it? It's absolutely fantastic. Very simple to get on board. You download the app, you sign up, and away you go. You're keeping yourself safe, you're keeping yourself secure, and you're supporting the podcast at the same time. And another benefit, and I've already mentioned three, and there are a host of other things to mention as well if we had the time. But the final thing I'm going to mention is a 30-day money-back guarantee. So it's literally no risk. If you don't like it, get your money back. But you will like it because it's a superb app to have on your phone. Keeps you safe, keeps you secure. And once again, you're supporting the podcast. So click the link or go to nordvpn.com/tune to take advantage of an exclusive offer for our listeners and viewers of the Everything is Black and White podcast. Roll the titles. Hello and welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I'm Andrew Musgrove. Today we're going to look at Newcastle United's new centre-back Malick Thiaw. It's a pleasure to welcome Lorenzo Bettoni, Editor of Football Italia, back to the podcast to provide some insight into the 24-year-old German international who moved to St James's Park last month for a deal worth around £34 million. Lorenzo, welcome back to the podcast. You were on a couple of years ago talking about Sandro Tonali, and today we're going to discuss another former AC Milan player. How are you keeping? Are you well?
Yeah, Andrew, thank you for having me on. All very good. Exciting transfer window. Some very good moves from Newcastle as well, including this one. So yeah, ready to go and excited to talk about Thiaw because there's a lot of potential there, I think.
I'm very excited to learn more about him because I have to be honest, I've not watched too much of him, and I don't know next to nothing about him, to be quite honest. So I'm looking forward to getting your insight into him. What do you make of the deal first and foremost?
Well, I think it was a good deal for both clubs because Thiaw was on paper a starter for Milan, but he hadn't fulfilled entirely his potential at the club. So after 3 seasons, they decided to part ways, and I think it was a good deal for both Milan and Newcastle. I have to be fair, the new Milan sporting director Iglitare was praised by the fans and the media for completing these and other big sales for the Rossoneri because they got quite a few money from players leaving. And this Malick Thiaw deal was seen as a pretty good one for Milan. But given the fee and given the league where he's going, I think it will turn out being a very good move for Newcastle as well.
Fingers crossed. I mean, he was linked previously in the window to move to Como for a price substantially less than what Newcastle United paid. That deal didn't come off, even though it looked quite far down the line. Can you just explain to us what happened in the early part of the summer prior to him joining Newcastle?
Well, basically, Como, they keep a close eye, of course, on all Serie A players. They had been in talks with Milan for Theo Hernandez as well over the January transfer window. And Thiaw was one of those players that Fabregas wanted to strengthen the team, especially in defense, because Como have made a lot of signings in attack and in midfield as well. But in that moment of the season, they lacked the sort of defensive leader, let's say, a big name in defense. And so they were in talks with Milan. It wasn't entirely clear the fee they would have to pay, but as you said, surely was lower than what Newcastle paid. But in that situation, Como were also in talks with Milan for Alvaro Morata, who ended up playing for Como in the end. The issue there is that Morata was on loan at Galatasaray until the end of the year, so December 31. And so it would have been a fee including Morata and Cho. In the end, Cho wasn't interested in joining Como because initially he seemed willing to return to Germany and have a third chance to play for the German national team again. But then nothing big emerged from Germany. Newcastle arrived. Of course, they will be playing Champions League this season. It's a big Premier League club, and so it was pretty easy for him to reach an agreement, and for Milan as well.
So did Milan want to sell, or was this the player who's driven this exit? Because there's a few different versions coming out that actually, after the Como interest kind of didn't come to anything, he went back and had a really good pre-season, and the manager actually was quite impressed by him. And then he's gone, but it is the Premier League. I want to go. I mean, can you just maybe offer some clarity on the feeling of the manager and maybe the board as well?
I mean, Joe was a regular starter at Milan. If he had stayed, I would expect him to play 75% of the games at least, considering that they don't even play European competitions this season. So I think he was seen as a regular starter. But after 3 seasons, he and the club were in a position where if he had received a good offer and Milan had received a good offer, they would discuss it. And I think this is exactly what happened. You mentioned the pre-season, which was fairly good from Cho and from Milan in general. And I think that, especially in that situation, Milan didn't put him on the market because they saw that actually it could work for the team and with the new coach, Massimiliano Allegri. At the same time, they were aware that after 3 years, if they had a good offer, they would have sold him. And this is exactly what happened.
He's been a man on Newcastle's list for quite a few years. He's a player who's definitely liked. And I don't know if you saw the interview when he arrived at Newcastle United, that was mentioned to him and he had a little smile. I think that maybe made a little bit of a difference as well. I mean, when you track a player for that long, what is it about Malick Thiaw that you think Eddie Howe and Newcastle United have taken such a keen liking to?
I think his skill sets. I mean, he is faster, he has physicality, he has everything you want and everything you expect from a centre-back. And he's pretty young as well, being just 24. So I think he was a good investment for the long-term future as well for Newcastle. But ultimately, it's about him potentially becoming a very complete defender because he's dangerous in the air. He has this physicality. He is fast as well. And so, especially in the Premier League, he has all the skill sets, all the features that you want to have from a centre-back. He has to work on some sides of his game, but he has the basics there to become an important player in the Premier League and for Newcastle.
Can you just go into a little bit more about the side of his game that he does have to improve on?
Well, probably when he defends on open field, despite being very faster, because Joe is pretty faster. Sometimes he's still struggling when he has to track back quickly, and especially on man marking inside the box, he's not that strong yet. I mean, he's improving. He's been showing sign of improvements, but I think he has some work to do on that aspect. He played any sort of game for Milan. Sometimes he was like really not focused, and Milan conceded many goals. Sometimes it was brilliant, like for example, Real Madrid-Milan actually last season in the Champions League, 3-1 win from Milan, and Cho scored the goal as well. So he can have a very, very big night. The target and the challenge for him will be to become as consistent as possible, to always be similar to that player who scored the Bernabeu and only let Real Madrid score a goal. That's the main point, I guess.
I think long term, the idea is to see him come in and replace Fabian Schär, who is brilliant. He's good in the air. He's got a bit of pace about him, although at his age it's starting to decrease. But his passing range is what really stands out about Fabian Schär, and his ability as well to score goals. I mean, he can't half hit a ball in the back of the net. Has Malick Thiaw got that in his locker where he can pick a pass and he can also drive forward and bag a couple of goals?
Yeah, I think so. For goals, I think he can do even more, because at the end of the day, that goal against Real Madrid was only his second for Milan. He actually scored just 2 goals for Milan in 3 years. But he can, I have to say, Milan were pretty poor from set pieces. So this is not entirely his responsibility, because both in defending from set pieces and attacking from set pieces, they were quite weak in the previous campaign. I expect them to be stronger this season, and probably Cho could have helped them to be more of a threat inside the box when it comes to corner kicks and to free kicks. But he has the potential to improve. I see a lot of, I think the key word here is potential, because he has already played for an established club in Italy. He has already played in the best competition for clubs. He is a German international, although there is a lot of competition to play as a centre back for Germany. But he has room for improvement, and I think this is the key when discussing Cho. And regarding the building from the back, I think he can be a valuable asset as well, because he's been pretty good with the ball. Again, Milan. It wasn't the best season for Milan last season to, judge on performances and results, because everyone was pretty poor in every department of the pitch, pretty much, except for Pulisic and partially Fofana and Leao. But generally, it was a poor season for Milan, and so the stats and the results from last season don't necessarily say everything about Cho.
Do you think he comes to Newcastle with the ambition of being that first choice right-sided centre back? Like, he's not come just to play as part of the squad. Also, I mean, obviously that's in the background, but he wants to be first choice.
Yeah, I think so. I think he wants to be first choice, and I think he has a lot of ambition. I mean, Como are a club with a lot of ambition, but he still didn't want to go there because he feels himself ready for an even bigger step. I mean, Como are going to fight for Europe this season. It's not an open target, but they've made investments that made them possible challengers for a European spot. Newcastle are clearly on a different level. So the fact that he wanted to make a move to a big club in the Premier League suggests that he feels he can do this, and he feels he can become an important part of the team.
And I guess for Newcastle United, what they've got is someone with Champions League experience, which is absolutely crucial going into this new campaign as well.
Yeah, he has nearly 20 appearances in the Champions League already for Milan, and so he's a player who's tested at that level. He's played in some big games as well when Milan reached the Champions League semi-finals in 2023. So he knows what it takes to play in certain stages, and he has all the experience, I think, to play at a very good level in the Champions League.
I'm very excited to see him play for Newcastle United. Obviously came off the bench against Liverpool for the kind of last 10, 15 minutes, and he had one mistake, but he recovered from that, and the touches that we saw and the passes that he played definitely whet the appetite for what's to come. I'm also, be linking back up with Sandro Tonali as well, who is just, I mean, we're talking about midfielders. He's just an absolute beast. He's something special. But do you think that relationship, were they close at Milan at all? I mean, they probably weren't there together all that long, but it's nice to see them link up again, I guess.
Yeah, 100% for sure is going to be Tonali, somebody that Cho can rely on. At the beginning, it's never easy for foreign players to settle in any country. It can be England, Germany, or Italy, but it's the same for us. When we move to somewhere else, we always need some familiar faces close to us to actually help us settle in the work and in private life. And I think Tonali can be this sort of link up with Gio, because he's experienced both life in Milan and at AC Milan and life in England for some years now, and so 100% I see a solid link up in there, and the possibility for Tonali to probably speed up the way that Cho will adapt to Newcastle on and off the pitch.
Fingers crossed. And just on Tonali, one final question. I mean, how is Italy looking at his progress in terms of at Newcastle United? Obviously, we know with the ban, he missed 10 months of football, but he's come back into this Newcastle United squad, and for many, he's the best midfielder we've seen in the last 20, 25 years. He's absolutely superb. I mean, what's the viewpoint from Italy?
It's the same. I mean, we greatly appreciate that since he returned a year ago, he's been so good for club and country, really. Italy have been missing a player like him. He provides that everything. I mean, he's a complete midfielder. He has the stamina, he has the quality, he has the physicality. And so, unfortunate about Italy's struggles over the last few years. And Tonali wasn't available for the 2024 Euros because it was during his ban. But since his return, he's become a key player. Now Gattuso will make his debut as the Italy national team coach, but already Tonali was a key player under Spalletti, who was sacked in June, and I think he'll have an even bigger role under Gattuso, who knows him well from his time in Serie A and his time in Italy. I actually watched him in the first training session of Gattuso here at Coverciano in Italy, and despite the recent injury, he seemed pretty fit, and he scored some beautiful goals in the first open training session of Gattuso. So, I mean, he doesn't see going any down. He seems to be always on the rise, and this is very, very good for us and for Newcastle as well.
Yeah, long may it continue. Getting back to Malick Thiaw, sometimes defenders, but I guess you can pick any position. Transition from the Italian league to the Premier League can be a little bit difficult. It's a little bit more physical, a little bit quicker, perhaps. Do you see the transition being smooth, or do you think he might have some trouble to begin with? And what's your viewpoint?
No, I think in terms of physicality and pace, it should be quite smooth. Of course, he's accustomed to a different sort of football, perhaps more tactical, but he's been quite an attacking football in Serie A as well. And he's not an Italian living Italy for a different country. He has already moved abroad. He has experience in a foreign country. And so I think he's going to adapt relatively quickly because he knows how it feels like to go to a different country. Then, of course, Italians can settle in very quickly anyway. And there was a case for many players in the past and even more recently, including Tonali, for example. But in his case, probably moving abroad is not such a big issue or such a big question mark because he's done it already. He moved from Schalke to Milan in 2022, and so he's already done that switch. And perhaps he's settling in Newcastle is not going to be that difficult for this reason.
Well, fingers crossed on that as well. And just one more point on the price tag. Do you think in time, if everything goes to plan, it could actually prove to be a bit of a bargain?
I think it can be a very good signing. I mean, it's very difficult to talk about transfer fees with Premier League experts like you because we see a 40 million euros like a lot of money for the club that is selling the club and a lot of money, of course, from the club that is buying. But for Premier League, we know you guys have different kind of standards when it comes to making big signings, and so from an English perspective, 40 million euro is not a lot. It's not that much because I don't want to say an average signing, but it's something that you have to expect in a season. For Serie A to sell a player for 40 million, it's a lot of money, even though he was expected to be a regular starter. When you get 40 million for your player, you've done a very good sale. So I guess Milan will be satisfied regardless of Thio's development. And given that for the Premier League, this fee is high but not excessive, I think it can, on the long run, it can be a very good purchase.
Yeah, maybe kind of go under the radar because he hasn't got that heavy fee like resting on his shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. It's not necessarily bad.
What can he achieve, do you think, over the next few years at Newcastle United? What's your maybe hopes for him?
Well, it depends, of course, on the team setup as well and the general results and other players as well. But I think it surely adds depth to the team and is potentially somebody who can become a regular starter pretty quickly. So as long as the rest of the team works well and he's put in the, let's say, best position to defend himself, not too many one-on-ones, or if there are one-on-ones or need to defend man-on-man, he will likely improve on that aspect because he has all the basic to improve in that aspect. He has the physicality, he has the pace, he has the presence to be a very strong central defender. He just need to be a little bit more focused. So if he's focused and he's continuously playing at a very high level, and I think he's going to have an impact. But he knows to be more I can't remember. Sorry.
It's all right.
Maybe we'll change.
More switched on, more focused,
more switched on, more focused, and like being continuously good and keep improving.
Yeah, so you need that consistency to continue to improve.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is going to be interesting, because Newcastle have got the depth there at centre back. They've got 4 really good centre backs. A fifth, they include Jamal Lascelles, who is kind of there in the background as the captain, the club captain. So it's going to be interesting to see when he gets his first start, to whether he can actually do enough to keep that, or because at the moment I think many people would say that the partnership is Fabian Schär and Dan Burn going forward, and it's whether he can break that up and keep Fabian Schär out, and that's going to be a very, very tough battle. But definitely the depth is so important. That's what we wanted, what it has needed for a long time, and to have these options in this position is well welcomed. Just to finish off then, if you can just sum up for our viewers and our listeners what Newcastle United have got in Malick Thiaw.
They've got a solid defender who has all the ability that you want to have from the centre back in your team. You want to have a centre back who has physicality, and you want to have a defender who has space and who's good with the ball. So he has all the basics in there to be a very important player for Newcastle now and in the future. Of course, it takes patience. It doesn't mean that a new signing is ready to go and will perform 100% from the very beginning. You need to have patience, because he's a young player as well, relatively young at 24. And so you need to give him time to make mistakes sometimes, because it happens to everybody. So if there's a good environment, as it seems to be in Newcastle, especially among the fans, and he's welcomed well, as it seems, then I think the progress for the club and for the player will be continuous and mutual.
Well, that sounds perfect to me, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers will agree as well. Lorenzo, thank you very much for providing the insight into Malick Thiaw. To you guys watching and listening, you know what to do by now. Hit thumbs up, hit subscribe, get into the comments, and don't forget to take advantage of your discounted offer on a NordVPN plan. 1 subscription, 10 devices. Keep yourself safe and support the podcast at the same time. The link is in the podcast description box. And for myself, I'll see you guys very soon.